So welcome Vinayak TT. Vinayak is coming as a co-founder from QA Tech Talk, and he will be talking on very important topic, security in terms of API. Really looking forward for this great insight from you, Vinayak. Now, when we talk about Vinayak, he's having again more than a decade of experience into testing. He's working onshore, offshore, and having a variety of domain expertise like BFSI, fintech, real estate, evals, and etc. So and really it is great to know that he is a co-founder for QA Tech Talks. You must have seen a lot of conferences and meetups happening around this, and he's a very active member in sort of community and really passionate tester. He's also an author for Cypress Cookbook, which is really wonderful to know. And it is really a privilege, Vinayak, to have you here and share your experiences and insight on security testing for API. In terms of Vinayak, you can go to the speaker profile page and have a detailed, insight about what he's doing and his interest and things like that. And feel free to connect with him, if you have any questions or kind of expertise you want from his domain. So yeah, with that, stage is all yours, Vinayak. Maybe you can share your screen and help us through your topic.
Sure, Sumit. Thank you for the introduction. Can you see the screen?
Oh yes, yeah, I confirm.
Sorry, I couldn't. I mean, the background is not working. So the background image I tried to update, but somehow it's not working. So
No, that
yeah.
is fine. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You can go. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, first of all, yeah, in today's topic, I'll be talking about API security testing, and my name is Vinayak Datti, and thank you, Sumit, for the introduction. So yeah, just I mean, already have Sumit have given the introduction. Yeah, just a bit about myself. I'm Vinayak Datti, from co-founder of QA Tech Talks, and I have overall 10 plus years of experience as a test manager, test lead, and test architect as well. And I'm a corporate trainer for Cypress, and I do training. I mean, I wrote a book on Cypress Cookbook, and a co-founder of QA Tech Talks community. And in free time, I do blogging, keynote speaker, and organizing events as well. So this is my profile. If anyone got any queries on anything, feel free to contact me. Okay. So yeah, from the session, the key takeaways I'll be covering about potential risks of APIs, common attacks against web APIs, and best practices for securing APIs. So one of the things is the security. We don't need to, I mean, focus on the web application, but yeah, we can cover the APIs as well. Okay, so yeah, the most general testing types we do usually functional testing and performance testing and API testing, and test automation is one of the key area in the QA role, and which is a specialized testing, which is the security falls in the place, which is certification testing, usability testing. So yeah, we have to focus on security testing as well, even though we are not the security experts in that area, but it is mostly like security experts, and they do the audits and vulnerability checking. But yeah, as a QA point of view, we have to also involve in the security testing and scanning as well. So here is the API status codes, everyone familiar. So the general status codes are from, if it's like a 200 series, it's a success, 201 is a created, and 300 series. So everyone familiar, like 301 is a redirection, and 400 series is for client errors and unauthorized, forbidden, and not found. And yeah, 500 series is for the, if the server is down or server gateway timeout. So we face these error codes. Okay, so here is the top API security risks from SimForm. So the general API securities are like asset management, code injection in sense of like SQL injections and NoSQL injections, cross-site scripting, data exposure, object level authorization. Authorization is one of the important key aspect in the security, logging and monitoring, and the next level is functional level authorization and security misconfiguration in the code level and architecture level as well, and finally user authentication. Excuse me. So here we can see the OWASP ZAP is a like open source security they maintain the security tools and standards. And yeah, they maintain the ISO 27001. Every year they do like analysis and they release like top securities for the web application, APIs, and mobiles. So here is the top security risks where user and function level authorization. So authentication mechanisms are often implemented incorrectly, allowing attackers to compromise authentication tokens or to exploit implementation flaws to assume other user identities temporarily or permanently, compromising a system's ability to identify that client or user, compromises API security overall. So here the thing is like the security, if the architecture and the authorization is not properly defined, so there is a chance of allowing attackers to compromise the authentication tokens. So tokens comes here, JSON tokens, which is the JWT token, and OAuth tokens. So yeah, so the main thing we have to keep up the best practices for authorization. And the next level is like excessive data exposure. Looking forward to generic implementations, developers tend to expose all object properties without considering their individual sensitivity, and relying on the clients to perform the data filtering before displaying it to the user. So data exposure, we have to make it as a limit. We should not reveal as much as data to the public. So attackers might take advantage to fetch the data. So lack of resource. For example, like APIs do not impose any restrictions on the size of number of resources, and that can be requested by the client or user. So here comes the like API server performance leading to denial of service, DOS, which is the, but also leaves the door open to authentication flaws such as brute force. So lack of resource, for example, the data should be to public. We have to release the data in a limited way. So no, we should not. There should be some traffic control to block the denial of service attacks. So I'll be covering more about DOS in the coming slides. Yeah, and the next security risk is security misconfiguration. Whenever there is any, the HTTP methods are not configured properly, or any incomplete ad hoc configurations, or unnecessary HTTP methods, or permissive cross-origin, which is a cross-origin resource sharing, and verbose error messages containing sensitive information. So cross-origin, for example, there is a policy like we should not allow cross-origin into our application. But there is a safe way to use the CORS and unnecessary HTTP headers, and the HTTP headers should be properly defined. The second and the next security risk is injection, which is very important in security, API security, which is SQL and NoSQL and command injection. So these are the most high level of vulnerabilities usually found in the applications. And when it occurred, untested data is sent to an interpreter. So hackers will always try to interpret the proxy and the traffic server through the servers. So they try to inject the queries. I will be covering more about SQL and NoSQL in the coming slides. The next thing is like asset management. Asset management, API tends to expose more endpoints than traditional web applications, making proper and updated documentation highly important. So we have to make sure all the documentation and versioning is accurate, and we have to make it like up to date. So whenever any deprecated API versions, we have to dismiss it, and we have to release the production APIs with updated versions. Okay, here is the flow for how a API client works. So here we can see web APIs connected to an endpoint, the location of the web server, and supporting databases. So backend, it's everything is an endpoint. Will be here we can see the left side. The client will be requesting the through API and to the endpoint. So there will be number of endpoints in a company. So from the endpoint will be triggering to the fetching the data from database. And the right side we can see how an API works. So it's like a cycle, API client to API request, server to database, server or database, and API response will trigger back to the client. So yeah, this is the general flow of how the API works in the architecture. Okay. So before jumping to the security best practices, we have to understand the potential risks of APIs. So in the words of Debbie Walkowski, so it's not just your data that is potentially at risk, but also your infrastructure. So the thing is like we are not only exposing the data, so it might be chance triggering the architecture level as well. So there is a chance of attacking the architecture. So by exploiting a vulnerable API, attackers can gain access to your network using one kind of attack. If they are able to escalate privileges, they can then pivot to other types of attacks and gain a foothold in the network. So this is one of the important thing. If the attackers try to get a chance to inject any queries, if there is any like vulnerable, I mean, if there is any chance to enter in one query, they will inject more. So there is more scope to attack the architecture. Okay, and there is another thing is the right attack often lead to a multiple level attacks. So it's the common thing. If there is one big bug in the application, so the code is not, defined, written properly, there is a chance of more bugs. In the same way, if one one vulnerability is there in the application, there is a chance of more vulnerabilities. So that's what here mentioned. To your organization most sensitive data being compromised, whether it's personally identified information, excuse me, or intellectual property. So it could be the data or the property level attack as well. So some of the key points from Jacob Etoscope. So when an API is deployed without sufficient security in place, or is deployed before security is in place the correct way, it commonly causes deployment failures or incidents. So whenever any applications developing or revamping, we have to make sure security also one of the testing type. So usually we do the functional API performance level, but yeah, we have to cover the security as well. So as organizations continue to break down monolithic applications into microservices, nowadays all the applications and infrastructure is mostly microservices, right? So the thing is, the growth of microservices can lead to the more vulnerabilities. So we have to make sure each service is tested properly before deploying to production. So as I earlier mentioned, some common attacks against the web APIs. Here is the first one, which is the injections, which comes as a SQL injection, NoSQL, or there is another one, cross-site scripting. So it is able to, the injection is able to insert malicious code or commands into the program, usually where ordinary user input, such as a username or password, is expected. So SQL injection is a specific type of injection attack enabling an attacker to gain control of SQL database. So the attackers, what they will try to do, they will mimic the application and the queries, they will inject the vulnerable queries into the malicious queries into the database, and they try to fetch the username and passwords from the DB or any data from the payments order, any data from the DB. So the next level of like the next level of attack is the cross-site scripting. Is a type of injection attack that occurs when a vulnerability enables an attacker to insert a malicious script. So this level of attack is like usually in the DOM, attackers will try to inject a JavaScript. So it will interpret the attackers will interpret the DOM and it will pass as a proxy. So so the real user, when they log in, so they don't know there is a JavaScript cross-site scripting exists in the application. So we have to make sure those kind of vulnerabilities not exist in the application. So here is the more overview of the SQL injection. So applications can talk to database using SQL queries. So usually when we want to talk to a DB, so we need a query. So that is the main thing attackers will try to use for injection. SQL injection occurs when an application does not protect against malicious SQL queries. So all the DBs should not reveal any less suspicious attacks. An attacker can use malicious SQL queries to trick the database into providing sensitive information. So here is one of the another analogy. So here we can see the student URL. We are passing the query student ID 117 or 1 equal to 1. So 1 equal to 1 is a SQL query, which is a injecting. So here we can see it's passing to the web API server, and in the backend database, it's doing the in the backend it will do the query and fetch, and it will return the responses. So if the database is not secure or the API is not secure, so attacker can fetch all the data. Yeah, here is one more example. Here we can see the attacker is trying to union select username password from users. So he is trying to inject into the DB, and after that, if the DB is not secure, and if we are not tested at the APIs, it will the attacker can fetch all the passwords and usernames using the SQL injections. So the above one, here we can see the valid query, which is select star from users, where username is equal to winner and password equal to blue cheese. So below is the invalid query, which is where username equal to administrator dash dash and password equal to blank. In this way, they will try to inject. There are multiple SQL injections, so they will try their luck. They will inject like hundreds, thousands queries. If the database is not secure, at least, I mean, 1 or 2 queries will be passed through. So the other common attacks against web APIs is, as I earlier mentioned, DDoS. DDoS is defined as a distributed denial of service. So these kind of service attacks, what will happen? Attackers will try to target your servers. So whenever there is any cache systems, or they will try to clear the application's cache. So the real user won't be able to access the application, because the attackers will try to interpret, and they will clear all the cache and the server data. So so it will bring the application to down 1 to 2 days. It happened in my previous company. So what it usually comes from the attackers, or if I'm not wrong, like a competitors. What they will do, they will try to inject the clear the application server. So when a real user comes, there will be application is down. So the payments or any orders won't happen. There is a revenue loss. So the next type of attack is the man in the middle. So it is kind of proxy. Attackers try to use as a proxy, and they will try to occur between the client and the API, or between the API and its endpoint. And the final one is credential stuffing. So it is kind of using the stolen credentials on API authentication endpoints to gain unauthorized access. So this is kind of brute force attacks. So some attackers, what they will do, they will try their luck to inject multiple thousands of username. They will try to pass through with passing invalid usernames and passwords, and they will try to fetch the data. So it's kind of like a brute force attack. They will try to inject at a time loads of data. So yeah, here is one more example of denial of service attack. So here we can see the left side. In the most common example of denial of service attack, an attacker uses a network of hijacked computers. So they will use like multiple computers like a real traffic. So it's not a real traffic, it's coming with from the hacker. So they will hit the server, and they will clear all the server requests, leaving no bandwidth for the legitimate traffic. So here is one more example. The top, we can see the attacker tries to interpret like a real user. In the below, we can see the real user. So they will inject the malicious traffic through internet, and they will hit the target server. So once the server is like the data is totally going to zero, the server will be service will be offline, and the data will be not served to real clients, and there will be no traffic, and no payments, or no products selling. So there will be revenue loss. So the next thing is like, okay, so far we have seen the like API security risks and API attack types and mitigations. Okay, if it is like a SQL injection, there are workarounds as well. So we have to validate and sanitize all the data in API requests, limit response data to avoid unintentionally leaking sensitive data. And the second one is cross-site scripting. We have to validate the inputs in the DOM. We have to make sure like no suspicious JavaScript codes in the DOM, and use character escaping and filtering. So as earlier mentioned, denial of service, we have to use rate limiting and limit payload size. So for example, we can do the load testing and see where the API is breaking and how much data we are passing to the user. And man in the middle, which is encrypt traffic in transit. So all the APIs which pass through HTTPS and secure, it's a SSL certification. So we have to encrypt all the traffic. And finally, credential stuffing, using the intelligence feed to identify credential stuffing and implement rate limits to control brute force attacks. So credential stuffing, they will try to get the passwords and usernames from the DB. So yeah, it's kind of a brute force attacks. Okay, so so far we have gone through the API risks, but now is the best practices. So one of the thing is like we have to identify vulnerabilities by doing manual pen testing or using automation scanners. So the next one is leverage OAuth. OAuth is now is the latest framework, like a security framework to it's kind of like a token framework. So a powerful tool for controlling API access is a OAuth. So using OAuth, for example, Facebook, when we are using any application, there will be social media login, Facebook and Gmail. So they will use OAuth only. So they won't provide the credentials of the users. They will give only the limited access using OAuth framework. And use tokens such as bearer token, JWT token, which is one of the good practice. and encrypt data. So all the data should be encrypted, and the username and password should be encrypted and should not be in a plain text, while in the application and in the API level as well. Okay, so use rate limiting and throttling. So we can do like the DDoS, reduce the DDoS attacks by doing the load testing of the APIs and make sure the data is not revealed more as a it should be a rate limits. So rate limiting can also throttle connections, balancing access with availability. So if we give like at a time all the availability, the data will be cleared. So we have to reduce that one using rate limiting and throttling. So finally, validate parameters which will help ensure that incoming data, third-party data will not cause harm. Okay, so the other practice is API gateway. So nowadays, all the architecture comes with API gateway. So as a major point of enforcement here, we can see a good gateway will allow organizations to authenticate traffic through legit traffic. So AWS API gateway is one of the best platform for that one. So the next one is don't expose more data than necessary. Okay, here is the like overview of Amazon AWS API gateway. So here we can see the left side, the mobile apps, the websites, and services going through internet. And in the architecture is the Amazon CloudFront, which is a CDN. And here we can see Amazon API gateway. So here we have a gateway cache and CloudWatch. CloudWatch is for logging and monitoring, and EC2 instance and Lambda. Lambda is a serverless API. So API gateway will take care of the all the traffic with the security. It's like a security gateway. So like any suspicious traffic won't be allowed. So other kinds of security is like inputting of the incorrect types must be rejected. In the we can test manually also using Postman. For the not only positive testing, we have to cover the negative, like for example, inputting null or undefined data. So the endpoint, the response should be rejected. So all API inputs of an incorrect size must be rejected. So whenever we try to inject like loads of data, the API should be rejected. It should not return the response. And API must provide only the data that are authorized. So for example, if the user is correctly logged authorized only, we have to provide the results. So if the user is not authorized, then we should block it. And APIs must be authenticated. So for example, if there is any login, so the username and password should be validated. Then only we should provide the access. If the password is invalid, we have to block it, or if the password try to inject more invalid more times, we have to block the account. So the another saying from Ohm's Turner, excuse me. So is lifecycle security techniques. So the application should be applied to API development. Security vulnerability testing throughout the API lifecycle can be critical to preventing problems before they occur. So the development, while happening development only, we have to take care of the security level as well, not functional, low performance, and API security as well. So it will give the good results in the future, long-term results. Okay, so finally, whether buying an API management platform or building one in-house, it's important that it provide protection not only from developer point of view, but from it also should protect from malicious usage, hijacking, and scrapping. So not only developers can take care of the code best practices, but the architecture also should be solid and it should block all the vulnerabilities. Okay, so there is like many tools, like for example, OWASP Zap is the open source tool, and there is another one, Burpsuit, SQL Map. So yeah, in the session I will cover a simple demo using OWASP Zap tool. We can download the version from the site, and after that we can enter the API URL to inject or attack the security vulnerabilities, and finally check the alerts and logs, and we can generate the HTML reports. Excuse me. So here we can see this is the site for the OWASP Zap tool. So here we can see they got like for all the platforms, Windows, Linux, Mac operating system, or cross-platform package as well. Excuse me. Okay. So from this website we can download the tool. Okay, so yeah, let me go through overview of how the OWASP Zap works. So here we can see Zap is an easy to use integrated penetration testing tool for finding vulnerabilities in web applications. It is not only for web applications, we can use for APIs and mobile apps as well. So yeah, it provides with two sources. One is the automatic scan or manual explore. So if we are more known about the security vulnerabilities and everything, we can do the manual pen testing. We can inject the SQL injections manually, or we can inject the cross-site scripting, click-jacking attacks, brute force attacks. Everything we can do manual. But yeah, we should know more about the security vulnerabilities before we inject. And we should not test all the production applications. We should test on the test environments. So production applications, they won't allow to inject the security vulnerabilities. Excuse me. So yeah, it comes with automated scan. If we click on automated scan, here we can see, there is a multiple URLs. For example, okay. So here is a APIs for open source API requests, and here we can see all the methods: get method, post method, put, patch, delete. So we can test all endpoints. Here I have given one test for web application, I mean API application. So webscantest.com data store. So this is the API endpoint. So we can use, like, if it is a browser, we can use we can use the browser. But in this case, we are not using the browser; it's a backend, right? So we can we can give the URL to attack, and here we can see this screen allows to launch automated scan application. Just enter URL below and press attack. And we should not use we should not be have been specifically given permission to test. So if the application is given permission, then only we have to do the tests. So okay, so now we have given the endpoint. If we click, so here is the application click. So here we can see there is two types of scanners. One is the active scanner, and the other one is the spider scanner. So active scanner is not started yet. Here we can see the spider scanner is started already. So here we can see all the API endpoints. It will fetch all the sitemaps from data store. So it will crawl all the application URLs, and it will inject the alerts. I mean, it will inject the vulnerabilities. So the active scan will start soon. Excuse me. So yeah, the difference between active scan and spider scan is, active scan is like it will scan whole the APIs or applications. But if it comes to spider will this scan will do the hidden links or hidden like a cross-site scripting, JavaScript. So anything hidden, and the spider scan will do the it will find the hidden elements. So now the active scan is started. So yeah, while it's scanning, here we can see the alerts option, alerts tab. So here we can see there is like a alerts. So the orange one is the medium level alert. Here we can see, okay. So there is one cross domain misconfiguration and vulnerable JS library. Excuse me. So if you expand the alerts, and here we can see it will give the details. What is the risk? The URL is the webscantest.course, and it's a risk level medium, and the evidence. What is the evidence? Access control allow origin, and here we can see the source. It's a cross domain misconfiguration. So and it will give the like a description. So web browser data loading may be possible due to a cross origin resource sharing misconfiguration on the web server, and it will give the other information to read more about the threats, and it will give the solution as well. So what to do? Ensure the sensitive data is not available in unauthenticated manner using IP address whitelisting. So yeah, here is everything given, the details about the vulnerability and the solution. So it will give the reference as well to refer the documents. So let's go to active scan. Still it's happening 19% only. So before that, excuse me. So let me show the policies. So if you go to analyze, here we can see we can inject our own policy. So by default, it comes with default policy. If we want to add more policies, if you click here, so here we can see injection. So the cross-site scripting, if we want to inject them as a vulnerability, we can select the cross-site scripting. If you want to inject like SQL injections, we can select the SQL injection. So if you go back, say I have already injected the SQL queries. So it's like a standard policy. So yeah, here we can see we found one SQL injection. So if we expand this one, so here we can see, okay, there's one SQL injection vulnerability. So here we can see SQL injection is maybe possible in this API. So if you go to the web test scan, here we can see the get. So we can check the request here and the response here. So what is the API is returning. So if you go to, we can check each endpoint in the same way. For example, here is the REST. and here is the endpoint. So in this way, we can check the request and response. In the alerts, we can check the threats. Here you can see 4 high alerts. So we can see like there is a SQL injection possible. So in this way, we can detect the vulnerabilities. If it's SQL injection, here we can see MySQL injections as well happening in this website. So the website and API's endpoint is not secure. So here we can see SQL injection may be possible. RDMS MySQL likely given. So this is the query, union specific error message regular expression. So the vulnerability was detected by manipulating the parameter with a SQL union clause to cause a database error. So here we can see all the information and the solution as well. Okay, so yeah, the last thing is like if you want to generate a reports, we can go to the report and generate HTML report. So here we can see we can save it in the documents. So once we got the reports, HTML reports, we can go to how many high, 2 high alerts, 3 medium, and 7 low, and informational 2. So if here we can see how many injections happened. SQL injections happened, total instances 7. Cross-domain misconfiguration medium 1. So here everything will be detailed. So the medium SQL injections here, the how many times it triggered, and the instances, 4 instances. Solution, what is the solution for that one? So there will be like a solution for the to read more about the threats and other information, and the reference. We can check this reference to find out more about the alerts and fixes. So we have to share this document to security experts or developers. They can go through the document and they can see where is the leakage happening, so that they can fix the development code, or if it's the infrastructure, they'll fix the infrastructure level. So yeah, so with that we have completed our session, and finally, yeah, any questions regarding the
Thanks, Vinayak. So Vinayak, yeah, there are some couple of questions for you. Vinayak, Patrick is trying to understand one thing here. What he's trying to say is when you talk about this access rate limitation, right? So if we do that, then what happens to the legitimate users? Because they may be also blocked after number of fake logins, right? So
yes. So okay,
yeah.
so if the real user is blocked for after 5 times, so there is a workaround, whether they have to contact the admins to unblock the account, or they have to like use like forget password. Sometimes users forget password, so they will we will generate a link and they can reset the password. If it's a legit user, in that way we can provide the unblock the account and they can access the website.
Okay. Does this answer your question, Patrick, or you have any other confusion? Okay, I take that as a yes. So another question from Praveen. He's trying to understand again when we filter out false positive from the scan results. So he's trying how to filter out false positive from the scan results from the Zap tool.
Okay, so so that's why we should not we should not do the automatic scanner on production environments. So we should do on the test environments only. And yeah, even though security experts also they can't be assured that it is 100% positive. But we can read what is happening in the application. Whether it's false positive also, it doesn't matter. At least we know we found some vulnerabilities. If it is like valid, we'll fix it. If it is not, we will ignore it. At least it's a learning experience. What is happening in the background of the application APIs. So yeah, in that way, so yeah, sometimes even I face false positives. So that's why we have to do 2 levels of security testing. One is the QA level, which is the internal audit and vulnerability scanning. One is the external party will do. So most companies will give for consultancy as an external party. So yeah, 2 levels of security testing. If our results are failed, at least like the security experts will give the valid results.
Yeah, so Vinayak, just to add to that question, do you send this result to the security expert to reproduce the issue, or who makes the final code, whether it's a false positive or a real issue?
Okay, so in my company, what happened, we have internal security team. So I was also involved in the security testing. So once I found any vulnerabilities, I will report to the internal team, not the external party, because external party, they won't bother about our reports. They will check their own scanning and they will find the pen testing and they will find their own, they will release their own reports. But before that, because our external party will take time. Internally, we have everything access, right? Architecture, code level access. We can use SonarQube for security as well, one of the another tool. So meanwhile, we can do our own analysis and excuse me, share the reports with developers and security team in the internal in-house.
Thanks, Vinay. Perfect.
Thank you.
Vinayak, one last question. If you can share with the community few open source and good tools which you can recommend for
Sure.
doing security testing.
Sure. The thing is, WASP-ZAP is one of the top open source tool in the security aspect, and the second one is brute force. But brute force is licensed. Here we can see we can do automatic scanning and manual, but brute force comes with license for the automatic scanner, so we cannot use automatic scanner in brute force. If you want to go for open source or WASP-ZAP tool, and the second one is SonarQube. SonarQube also one of the open source tool. So where it will analyze the APIs and source code, and it will show the high-level risks, security API risks. And the other one is SQL Map, also open source, but that is more into command line execution, not like we use the GUI here. But SQL Map is one of the best open source for SQL injections.
Okay, thanks, Vinayak. Well, I'm just checking if you have any other question from anyone. No, I think, yeah, we have covered all, Vinayak. So allow me to share screen back.
Thank you, Sumit. Thank you for the opportunity given about talking about security testing.
I hope my slides are visible. Again, if anyone can confirm.
Yeah, it's visible.
Great. So thank you once again, Vinayak, for really a wonderful session and a kind of a very detailed best practices in terms of security testing and things like how to strategize, particularly for API. So I'm sure it was a very wonderful and a great insight for every one of us.